Hey, we're back here for chapter 3 in the fiction of forgiveness. All right. The title of chapter 3 is Sign That Boy Up for the Olympics. And I'll give you a little bit of background. My mother was an extremely competitive person. Anything she got us involved with, I don't know, I'm thinking especially me, she thought, for day one of swimming lessons, he's going to the Olympics. It's just what my mother was. I mean, she was so desperate for us to achieve, and I think it's wonderful that she was that way. But a little bit of pressure there. Can you imagine how it's little bit of pressure on it? I mean, so chapter 3, sign that boy up for the Olympics. Wyatt had decided that 4 degrees would be just enough. He recalled, my parents had so hoped that there would be an MD with my name appended, but it did not happen. By the way, 4 degrees, meaning 4 academic degrees. My parents had so hoped that there'd be an MD with my name appended, but it did not happen. I was raised to worship doctors and lawyers, President Kennedy, and maybe the Pope once in a great while. This was my own doing, although it was the life I led dedicated to my mother's ambition, not my father's for some unknown reason. My father never told me to become a this or a that. My mother was always trying to fill in the calendar way down the road, like the time she circled 1968, Olympics year, and 10 years away from my first frail swim lessons in the town with the gray-haired man with an exposed testicle, my swim teacher. Suffice it to say, I did not last more than a few weeks in these lessons, although I can swim to save my own life, if called upon. Have you recalled the very first time you discovered the art of touch typing? You found a set of 45 RPM records in a junk store and brought them over to the rental on East 73rd Street. You sat in a darkened room once you had mastered the art, at least to a minor extent. You were the millionth monkey banging out Hamlet, were you not? There were all sorts of pretentious little preppies fumbling forth on the green lawn, day in, day out. Daddy owned a bank, and Uncle published naked ladies in the National Geographic. Was there a way that any of this would come to mean much in the order of things? What makes us whole? Do we sign on for a college degree as one might buy a scratch off ticket? Do we? I can assure you that we do. Of course, there was Vietnam raging, and boys like Tyler, Snake, and Taylor knew they'd be nothing but cannon fodder. So Daddy rallied to their defenses with familial contacts to create ample diversion. Tyler's doctor claimed he had developed epilepsy after putting his face through his Mercury Comet's windshield up on Route 1 by the clam shack. Not a stitch too soon with a draft number of 33. Tyler stopped eating things with faces, and you may want to consider some of the same. He always said if he was on a death march in the wilderness with nothing to eat but squirrels, he would most definitely eat them. But what's the sense of taking another creature's life if it isn't absolutely necessary? He came from a small town in Vermont, equidistant from the Canadian border and that of Massachusetts. He came to appreciate lager shirts, button-fly jeans, and badass boots, the kind they used as memes for motorcyclists. He never quite learned what it meant to have a personality slash identity because nothing was going to happen until he had the Harvard diploma in hand. Nothing was ever going to happen without it. And so when the bill came due, they paid it, although there was never any assurance that the degree was in his future. It was a wide eyed gamble to send Tyler to that prep school down south, where the doctor's sons and professor's sons collided with the sons of insurance men and pharmacists. All felt the heat of expectation upon their backs as generations of their kind breathlessly awaited the arrival of acceptance letters from Harvard at best and NYU at worst. Needless to say, Tyler's crimson letter never came. All right, that's chapter 3. I realized something as I was going through this. This is actually an earlier edition of this book, and I'm glad we're reading it because it really retains a lot more of the say kind of there's a wildness to the writing here that I gave myself the license to experience at the time that I was writing this in the winter of 2020 and in the spring. And so I really do like that. And as I'm reading, I'm saying, I think I'd like to get back to a little bit more of that, a little wilder. The point is that, parents getting ahead of ourselves, the fiction of forgiveness. Okay, another in a list, a litany of failures that this book is really about. And once again, uh, going to a swimming lesson. Actually, this is real. It's a real story. There was at the last day of swimming lessons. They had a little mini Olympics, and we had to jump in the deep end with like three kids across the pool, and we had to swim, do just one length. That's it, and just make it to the end. And then that would be it. It was a little race, and then the winner would get the accolades. And I remember jumping in. I'm swimming along. I'm really not very comfortable doing it, but some kid cuts right in front of me in my lane. I was like, "What the?" I mean, I just stood up in the pool. I just stopped swimming. I was not going to fight this kid. What was he doing in my lane? Why was they disqualified? I mean, there's something really kind of shameful about the whole thing. Meanwhile, I couldn't even finish one length of a swimming pool, and this is the kid who's supposed to go to the Olympics in '68. So here we are. All right, later. Thank you so much. Next chapter, we'll get to it in a minute.